everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of Indie Game Sauna. I'm Juho Kuorikoski, I'm an independent game developer from Finland, and I'm reviewing other indie games in this series. In this episode, I am covering a game called The Night is Grey, a point-and-click adventure game. So, let's go see what it's all about. The Night is Grey is a classic point-and-click adventure game with a high emphasis on the word classic. The gameplay focuses on puzzle solving, and there are only a handful of NPC characters you can interact with. You play as Graham, a random guy we are introduced to when he's running away from wolves. After that, he finds a little girl inside a cottage and agrees to deliver her to her grandparents. We basically have a standard Last of Us or Telltale's The Walking Dead situation at hand, but unfortunately the relationship between the two characters doesn't really develop during the game. The Night is Grey is a bit of an oddball, as for the majority of the game it feels like a lukewarm, very slow-paced experience, but during the last 15 minutes of the game the whole setting is turned upside down. If you're a fan of adventure games, you feel right at home. The one-click interface is pretty self-explanatory, and the majority of the puzzles are well made, and you usually have an idea on what you're supposed to do. Sadly, there are some exceptions. The developers have added a maze in the middle of the story, and this was so convoluted and messy that I had to resort to a walkthrough just to get past it. These kinds of segments were an usual sight in Sierra's adventures, but in my opinion, you shouldn't have to suffer through them nowadays. The biggest issue I have with the game has to do with pacing. Everything moves very slow, and there's quite a lot of backtracking. This, combined with the gripe I had with the maze, created a feeling that the developers weren't confident enough to go with what they had, so they needed padding to generate some extra hours to gameplay. This can be seen in the dialogue as well. While there aren't that many NPCs to talk to, the monologues of the main character tend to drag on, and the same can be said about the conversation with the little girl our hero is tagging along with. I understand that the pacing is used to drive in the atmosphere, but I honestly think you could speed things up. Quite often I felt that the game was just wasting my time. I don't want to spoil the plot, because in this department the developers have done a marvelous job. When the last third of the game starts, it feels like a completely different game, which is at first a bit off-putting. Once you get to those last minutes of the game, it all makes sense, and the twist right before the end credits does make the whole journey a worthwhile experience. The Night is Grey is a good adventure game, but it could have been great with some minor adjustments. Tighter script and tighter pacing would have made wonders. It's a shame that the shortcomings in these departments leave the game just a few inches away from being a masterpiece. Overall, I enjoyed my time with The Night is Grey, and if you're a hardcore point-and-click adventure game fan, you should definitely check it out. The game kicks the adventure game year off to a great start, and I'm eagerly waiting what the developers will come up with their next game. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing for this channel, it would mean a lot. Besides these indie game reviews, I also host a devlog of my upcoming adventure game Hyperdrive In, which you should definitely check out too. If you are an indie game developer, I would love to hear about your project. I need content for this series, so do get in touch. I'm more than happy to check out what you are doing. But that's all for today. I see you guys again next week, but until then, bye bye!